Hi guys, it's Mr. Red Guy 92. I am doing Diaz versus Condit UFC 143 prediction today. Um, the only prediction that I'm gonna do is Diaz versus Condit. It was recommended, and I'm posting it. So here we go. I got um, we have two fighters that are very similar to each other. Both have great stand-up. Both have decent Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Both are finishers. Both finish fights. Diaz finishes fights usually, and Condit finishes fights. But um, the competition that Carlos Condit has faced, in my opinion, is far more experienced, shall we say, than the competition that Nick Diaz has faced, with the exception of obviously BJ Penn. Um, Diaz hasn't really fought anybody. In Strikeforce, he didn't really fight anybody that held any merit value whatsoever. He didn't fight Jake Shields, who at the time was one of their biggest names. I know him and Jake Shields are big training partners, but that never happened. And he fought. He didn't fight Mayhem Miller. That was a fight that was supposed to be happening in Strikeforce that never did. Um, he fought Paul Daly. Josh Koscheck fought Paul Daly. Um, so I mean, he did, he hasn't really fought anybody. Carlos Condit has fought Jake Shields. He's fought. He's lost to Jake Shields too. But just not even the fact of winning and losing. More so about the fact that who they have fought. Condit has definitely fought much more superior, much more technical strikers as far as that goes. And I also think that the Nick Diaz slapboxing techniques won't be able to work on Carlos Condit. Carlos Condit is a guy that doesn't really let much get to him. He doesn't let fighters implement their strategies at all. So that's why this fight is really interesting. I think Condit is better all around than Nick Diaz. Nick Diaz really hasn't been in the cage with a good wrestler, and Carlos Condit isn't really a good wrestler. He's never. It's not that he isn't a good wrestler. We haven't seen him try to wrestle with Diaz, but Nick Diaz is a very highly skilled Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu fighter. So even if Condit was a decent wrestler, a wrestler to the say if he had Josh Koscheck's wrestling capabilities, would he be able to maintain, mount, and get inside his guard without getting submitted? I don't know. So that's what makes this fight really interesting. I think Condit and Diaz both want to brawl with each other. Carlos Condit is pretty pissed off about the fact that he was given a title shot because of Nick Diaz's actions and because of Nick Diaz. He gets a all that mess. He ends up fighting BJ Penn. Then he beats BJ Penn in pretty devastating fashion. BJ Penn, quote unquote, retires after the fight, and Diaz gets his shot back, which that would piss me the fuck off if I was Carlos Condit. Pardon my French, but that would really piss me off. So I think Carlos Condit's got a big chip on his shoulder. He definitely wants to prove to Dana White that he deserved the shot, and GSP's hurt, so this is his opportunity to get his shot back, and this is Nick Diaz's opportunity to prove that, hey, I deserve this shot no matter what. I am the bona fide number one contender in the welterweight division. So this fight is really interesting, and I think that if I think if Condit can deal with the slapboxing techniques that that Nick Diaz and even Nate Diaz fights with, that the Diaz brothers bring to the table. If he can deal with that, and weather the storm of dealing with the way he uses his reach and everything like that. Um, I think that Condit could easily win this fight. But if Diaz does what he did, similar, if any of you guys have watched Nate Diaz versus Donald Cerrone, which was a fight recently, Nick Diaz fights like that also. So if Nick Diaz fights like that against Carlos Condit and Carlos Condit fights like Don Cerrone did, then it'll be the same fight, pretty much. So it'll be pretty interesting in that regard, but I see Condit winning the fight. I think that he is too focused. He's focused on the fact that Dana White took the shot away from him, and so did GSP, which Condit said he was mad about. So I think that Condit could win. Condit will probably win the fight just based off that. I think Nick Diaz is a good fighter, but I think that he doesn't have enough. Um, I don't know. I just don't really see him winning due to the fact that he doesn't have enough in his heart, pretty much. Nick Diaz is a pretty crazy guy, and if that doesn't affect somebody, if he tries to affect a fighter, and the fighter has a stone cold will and doesn't really care what fighters do, like Carlos Condit, the stuff that Nick Diaz does to try and affect Carlos Condit before the fight won't affect him at all, and that's a hurdle that Carlos Condit is going to have to deal with in the cage. Carlos Condit doesn't care what people say, so he's not going to get rattled, and Condit's going to fight and win. So that's my prediction. Like it or not, I see Carlos Condit winning the fight. He's a former WBC champion. Um, he's more well-rounded than Nick Diaz. He doesn't let what other fighters say get to him. He's a calm, cool, and collected guy. He does his business in the cage. Does what he has to do, and based on that, I think that he will win the fight. He's finished every one. I think, with the exception of one fight on his record, he has finished every fighter that he has fought. So, for this to go to a decision, I don't believe it, but it might, due to the fact that it is, that Carlos Condit hasn't fought a fighter like Nick Diaz, and Nick Diaz hasn't fought a fighter like Carlos Condit before. So, that's my prediction. Thanks for requesting it. I was going to post it up shortly within the next few weeks anyway. I finally got some free time to do that, and I hope you guys watch. Thanks for watching. Keep watching, and have a good day.